So I rounded off the last video talking about variable names. I ran through these 6 points, and then I went ahead to mention that spaces don't matter that much, and that a semicolon suppresses a result and doesn't display the result on the command to the command window. By the way, this semicolon, we will use it a lot at the end of commands, particularly when we're writing functions later on. Just a little more on variable names and functions. A variable or function name, so it's case sensitive. I think I've mentioned already, MATLAB is case sensitive, so that name, and name are entirely 4 different and distinct variable names. Now, you want to be consistent with your naming style. So, for example, you could use what is called camel case. You could do capitalization of each word in a name, or you could put an underscore. These are 3 common suggestions that people usually have, or 3 common conventions that many people often have. I tend to use the first one. That's what I tend to use in my programming, but then you could use any of them, it's fine. It's just good to be consistent. Use a variable name that tells what the variable is. Now, I would strongly suggest that you don't use capital name, all case, capital N and low, and use all these 4 types of representing a particular variable name in a particular program, because somewhere along the line you need to ask yourself, when you come back to the program some months later, some years later, you may be confused on which one was uppercase, which one had just the first letter capitalized, and so on and so forth. Now, if you want to display what a variable is, I think I've done this a couple of times already. Just type the variable name at the command window. And so, for example, in the workspace, you have D. If I just type in D at the command window and press enter, it shows me the value of D. Okay, but another way we could go instead is to use the disp command. So, for example, I could say disp D, and it just displays the value of D. Take note, it doesn't say D equals to, as it did in the previous command. So you can just display the particular value of D. So let's do disp E, and just displays the value inside of E. So now some rules for arithmetic operators and the order of operation. Now, if you remember what was called BODMAS in lower levels in high school, primary school, MATLAB effectively obeys that. And you have addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and power. These are operators that we'll tend to use. Now, generally, MATLAB will do this. It will complete all computations inside a parenthesis or inside brackets. Typically, it does that. Then it computes powers from left to right, starting from left, then going towards the right. Then multiplication and division are done from left to right. And then you have addition and subtraction also done from left to right. So typically, this is the order in which MATLAB does its computation. So now, I promise I'll come back to getting help in MATLAB. So to get help in MATLAB, the easiest way to go is, if you know the function name, you type help, a space, and then the function name. That is typically how we get help. Or if you have a package name, so help, a space, and then the function name or the package name, and that gives us help in MATLAB. So let me take a simple example of that. If you type help and then sin, that gives us the help for the command sin. Now, so we see here that sin finds the sign of an argument that is in radians. So the way to use it, you type sin, open parenthesis, type your parameter in there, and close your parenthesis, press enter, and that is it. So it finds the sign of the elements of x. The word elements of x comes from the fact that your x may not necessarily be a single value, but may actually also be an array. So this gives us information about how to use this command sin. But take note also that you have the C also, and the C also tends to be quite important because it tends to suggest some other things that are possible. For example, you have ASIN, you have SIND, you have SINPI. Now you can click on any of these and they just give you more information, or they give you information about these particular commands. These commands are related to the command you are actually interested in, and they are not exactly this command. For example, if I click on this, then it tells me that this finds the sign of argument in degrees. So SIND assumes that your x is in degrees, whereas SIN assumes that your x is in radians. ASIN, if you check, that's the inverse sign. So this is one way in which you could find help in MATLAB. A second way you could find help in MATLAB is to click this button here, this FX button. If you click on it, if you take note that while my mouse was over it, you could also press Shift F1. Shift F1 does exactly the same thing as clicking this button. Now that will bring up a small window, and in here you could just simply type whatever command it is you're interested in. For example, let's say we wanted to find the determinants of something. I can just type in determinants in here, and then it gives me options. And so I just basically put my mouse over this, I hover my mouse over this, and it tells me that this matrix, this MATLAB function returns the determinant of square matrix A. So if A is a square matrix, then this command D is equal to DET of A will give me determinant of that. Okay, so that is a second way which we can find help within MATLAB. The third way we can find help within MATLAB is to click on this that says reference page for MATLAB, reference page for ASIN. So if I wanted to look for help on this particular command, I could just click on this. The other way I could do that is to type DOC ASIN. That will do exactly the same thing as clicking on this button. Okay, so let me just show something. Notice that when I do a mouse over at this point, take note that at this bottom left portion of MATLAB, this is just status window. And this bottom left portion of MATLAB, when you have your mouse over here, it shows you the actual MATLAB command, which is equivalent to clicking on that. So if I click on this, it gives me DOC space ASIN, okay, which is the same thing I typed in over here. So if I click on that, that opens up MATLAB's help window, MATLAB's documentation. It brings up the help window. You could also bring up this window by just simply pressing F1, and this now gives you an elaborate explanation of how the function works. It gives you examples. In some cases, you also have some live scripts that you can open up and actually try out. So you probably want to use this when you want in-depth information on how some commands work. On the other hand, if you just wanted a quick overview of how the command works, use help, and I use help a lot. Okay. So, a couple of points to note. Now, I've said this earlier on, but let me just reiterate. MATLAB is case sensitive, so take note of that. MATLAB is vast, so that if you wanted to do anything, particularly any mathematical computation, scientific computation, symbolic computation, there's a good chance that somebody has wanted to do it before you, and the MATLAB engineers have created a function to do it. So, check in MATLAB. I'll suggest check. Use Shift F1 and search, or open MATLAB's documentation and search. There's a good chance that somebody has created a function already about it for you. Well, it may not be in a toolbox that you need. You might need to purchase that toolbox, but then whatever the case, it's very likely somebody has written a function for you. Otherwise, you can easily write your function yourself. MATLAB is intuitive, so try things out. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. It's highly unlikely you can break MATLAB. MATLAB is very robust. Now, take note that square brackets and parentheses mean different things in MATLAB. They are not the same thing. Let me close out this video with this single slide, just giving an example of a couple of functions, math functions that exist in MATLAB. This finds the absolute value of x. This raises x, e to the xth power. This finds the logarithm to base 10 of x. This will divide x by y and tell you what the remainder is. SQRT is for finding square root. I think that's obvious. SIN will find this sign when x is in radians. A cos will find the inverse hyperbolic cotangent of x, and then you want to use this command, help ELFUN. Let me go ahead and just type that command just now. So help ELFUN, and it gives you a list of elementary functions that exist in MATLAB. So you might find this quite useful, at least in the initial stages when you're just starting out with MATLAB and you want to do some mathematical computation with it. So you have it's divided in sections: trigonometric section, exponential section, complex section, and then when you want to round things, so you have ceiling, floor, regular commands that you're probably used to in another language. So I'll wrap this video off at this point. Thank you.